We are at passage 11. As usual, read it over and ask yourself, does this contain an argument or not? Pause the video, think about it, come back when you're ready. Okay, I think this does contain an argument. Furthermore, I think that the conclusion is stated in this passage. So if you haven't already, read it over, find the ultimate conclusion, underline it, and give it number 1. Pause the video, do that, come back when you're ready. Okay, what did you underline? I mean, frankly, I think this is kind of tricky because it's a relatively long argument, but I think that the conclusion is the last sentence. Philosophical counseling will be either of unproven benefit or dangerous. One reason why that might be difficult to spot, if it was, is that not only is this a fairly long passage, but the conclusion is an or statement. And as I have said, there's a tendency to think that or statements aren't informative and so can't really be conclusions, but they can be informative and they certainly can be conclusions, right? I mean, let's go back to the example that I think I've used before. If I say to you, I will either bring a salad to the potluck or I will bring dessert, I am being informative. I'm telling you something. I will either bring the salad or I'll bring the dessert. You know, for instance, that I'm not going to bring a hot dish. So, or statements, they can be informative, they can be conclusions. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. What we're going to do is find the next 2 important claims. So, pause the video, do that, come back when you're ready. All right, let's see. Some people advocate philosophical counseling, but either a philosophical counselor will have training in psychotherapy or she won't. Well, there are 2 claims here. Some people advocate philosophical counseling, and either a philosophical counselor will have training in psychotherapy or she won't. Those are both claims. I mean, they're either true or false. Are either of them important? Well, let's take a look at the first claim. Some people advocate philosophical counseling. Does it seem to you like that is being given as a reason to believe that philosophical counseling will be of either unproven benefit or dangerous? I don't think so. I mean, the fact that some people like it is not a natural reason to think that it's either going to be unproven or dangerous. So although this is a claim, I don't think it's an important claim. So let's ignore it. What about this thing? Either a philosophical counselor will have training in psychotherapy or she won't. What about that? I'm just going to tell you that's important. And the reason that I'm just telling you that is because it's not obvious that that's going to be important. And once we've mapped it, we'll talk about why it's not obvious that it's important and how it can be obvious for you forever and ever after this. But right now, take my word for it, it's important. Let's go on. If the counselor has training in psychotherapy, then any improvement that the client experiences may be due to psychotherapeutic interventions. And so, if a counselor has training in psychotherapy, then the benefit of philosophical counseling will be unproven. Is there going to be anything in that sentence that's important? And if so, how many claims? Think about that. Pause the video. Come back when you're ready. Well, there's more than one claim here, right? Because the and so is an inference. Remember, and so is really a so. The and is just the so extender to make it easier to see. If the counselor has training in psychotherapy, then any improvement that the client experiences may be due to psychotherapeutic interventions. Should I divide that into 2 claims? No, because if I do, I'm dividing around the if-then, which is forbidden. So that is one claim. Similarly, this part of the sentence is also one claim, because if I were to try to divide that into its parts, I would be dividing around if-then, which is forbidden. So now the question is, should I figure out how 2 and 3 are related to each other? Or should I figure out how 3 and 4 are related to each other? Think about that for a minute, pause the video, come back when you're ready. So which relationship wins? The 2 and the 3 or the 3 and the 4? The 3 and the 4, right? Because they are connected with an inference indicator expression, which trumps everything. So let's represent that relationship. 3 and so 4. That and so is like so. So what we are going to have here is the 3 so 4. Now we want to ask, how is 2 related to the 3-4 bit? With an arrow, like an inference, with a plus, dependent reasons, or separate arrows, independent reasons. Think about that for a minute, pause the video, come back when you're ready. What did you decide? It's looking to me like it's going to be a plus. That 2 is going to be added to the 3-4 bit. Now the question is, to which should we add the 2? Should we add it to the 3 or should we add it to the 4? Pause the video, think about that, come back when you're ready. Okay, are you seeing kind of the relationship between 2 and 3 and 4? 2 is an or statement. Let us make those ors, those or parts a little bit more obvious. Oops, sorry about that. I'm still in draw mode. Get out of draw mode. Okay, right. Now, I'm going to color the disjuncts so it's easy to keep track of them. Either a philosophical counselor will have training in psychotherapy, either she will or she won't. And now we have two if-thens, and both of them have the same front part. And that front part just happens to be one of the things we've or'd. The counselor has training in psychotherapy, which is the green bit. Sorry about that, my computer is acting goofy. Come on, there we go. And same for 4. The counselor has training in psychotherapy. So if we're thinking about, does 2 more naturally hook onto 3, or does it more naturally hook onto 4? It looks like it could be added to either one of them. Which would be better? There's a couple of ways to think about that. Pause the video, think about that, come back when you're ready. Okay, here's one way to think about that. Let's ask, what would happen if I added it to 2? Because frankly, that's what I would think about doing first, because generally speaking, if 2 claims are close to each other in the passage, they're probably going to be close to each other in the map. If I add 2 to 3, what I'm saying basically is that 3 needs 2's help to get to 4, right? Does it? I don't think so. I think that 3 is quite enough to give us 4 all by itself. So I would not add the 2 to the 3 because the 3 doesn't need the 2. What about if we add it to the 4? Might that work? Well, it could. And it's looking good because, well, see if you can figure out why because. Should I now ask myself what follows from 2 and 4 put together? Or should I wait for a third part of a dilemma? Pause the video, think about that, come back when you're ready. I'm going to wait for the third part of a dilemma, right? Because I have an or statement here, and I have an if-then statement here, and the front part of the if-then is the same as one of the things or'd. So I know that I want to wait for another if-then that has as its front part the other thing or'd. And furthermore, I kind of know the sort of conclusion that I'm going to be getting. I'm going to be getting a conclusion that involves the back part of the if-then that I'm adding to the or. Because either this is going to be a simple dilemma or a complex dilemma. If it's a simple dilemma, it's exactly the back part of the or that I will be concluding. If it's a complex dilemma, I will be concluding another or statement, and the back part of 4 is going to be one of those or statements, right? So take a look at the back part of 4. The benefit of philosophical counseling will be unproven. Have we heard that before? Yes, that is one of the or statements in the conclusion. That's another reason why I'm very happy about adding 2 to 4, because I kind of know where we're going. This is why sometimes it helps to see what the ultimate conclusion is. I know we're going to 1, and I know that 4 plus 2 is part of the way that we're going to get to 1. But right now, all we need to see is that, yeah, let's wait for the third part of the dilemma. So let's continue to read. If the counselor doesn't have training in psychotherapy, then she won't be able to diagnose potentially serious mental illnesses. And so, if the counselor doesn't have training in psychotherapy, then philosophical counseling could be dangerous. Ask yourself, how many claims would you get out of that sentence, and how would they be related? Think about that, pause the video, come back when you're ready. Okay, the answer to the first question is 2 claims. The answer to the second question, how are they related, is with an inference, right? Because we have the and so. Note again the parallel structure here. And so is like so. So what we have is this claim. We can't divide around that if-then, because if-then sentences don't support their parts, is a reason to believe, sorry about that, the other if-then. So picture that in your head, if you will. And if you don't like picturing it in your head, that's fine. Write it down. That's fine. 5, arrow down to 4. How is that thing, the 5, arrow down to 4, going to be related to this thing, the 2, 3, 4 bit, with an arrow, with the plus, or separate? Think about that. Pause the video. Come back when you're ready. What do you think? I'm thinking with a plus. So we have 5, arrow down to 4. I'm sorry, 5, arrow down to 6. How is that going to be related to the 2, 3, 4 bit, right? How is that going to be related? I hope I didn't misspeak earlier. I hope I didn't say 5, arrow down to 4. Now I'm paranoid. It's 5, arrow down to 6. How is that going to be added to the 2, 3, 4 bit? Would it be with a plus, with an arrow, or separate? Thinking plus. What should be added to what? Think about that. Pause the video. Come back when you're ready. Okay, part of it is thinking, where are we going? We are going to this conclusion. Philosophical counseling will be of either unproven benefit or dangerous. The 4 gives us the unproven bit. So whatever we add to the 2 and the 4, remember we're waiting for that third part of the dilemma, had better be about the other bit, which is the dangerous bit, right? Which of 5 or 6 is talking about, you know, this philosophical counseling being dangerous? Looks like it's 6. So it's 6 here. Now, let's double check that. We don't need to worry about the 3 to the 4 or the 5 to the 6 because that is forced by the and so. Let's just take a look at this 2 plus 4 plus 6 and see if that sounds right to us. Either a philosophical counselor will have training in psychotherapy or she won't. If she does have training in psychotherapy, then the benefit of philosophical counseling will be unproven. If she doesn't have training in psychotherapy, then philosophical counseling could be dangerous. So it's either going to be unproven or dangerous. Ta-da! That's 1. So there we go. This is not a simple one because notice sort of the cha-cha we had to do. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 4 is separated from the 2 by the 3, and the 6 is separated from the 4 by the 5, so that can be hard to see. Wonderful. Let's resume to 2. Because I said there is something weird about 2 that might make it hard to see that that's a part of the argument. Let's go back to the stand by or statement that I have been using all along in an effort, if it's necessary, to convince you that or statements can be informative. Either I will bring a salad to the potluck or I will bring a dessert to the potluck. Now, as I've convinced you, as I've tried to convince you, if it's necessary, that or statements can be informative, the way I've done that essentially is I've told you, look, that might not be true, right? The whole reason it's informative is that I'm carving out one set of possibilities from others. I'm not going to bring a hot dish, right? That's why it's informative, because it excludes some possibilities. Just these 2, not others. But let's take a look at 2. Does that exclude a possibility? Could that conceivably be false? Either a philosophical counselor will have training in psychotherapy or she won't. Let's think about the kind of sentence that is. That's this kind of a sentence. P or not P, right? She's either going to have training in psychotherapy or she will not have training in psychotherapy. Think about other sentences of that type. Could they be false? Let's think about some. Today is Wednesday, or it's not the case that today is Wednesday. Now, I have no idea what day of the week you are going to be watching this video, but I know this. It's either going to be Wednesday or not Wednesday, right? That can't be false. How about this? Right now, it is either raining or it is not raining. Now, I have no idea what the weather happens to be at this moment whenever you are watching the video, but I do know this. It's either raining or it isn't. Sentences of this type can never, ever be false. There's a special word for such things, tautologies. And of course, I am not going to hold you responsible for this word, but I want you to know that it exists. A tautology is a logical truth. It can't be false. It's true basically in virtue of the meaning of the words that make it up. So if I were to say, if P, then P, that's another tautology. If it's Wednesday, then it's Wednesday. If it's raining, then it's raining, right? So tautologies are not informative. They don't exclude any possibilities. They are always true. Got that? P or not P can never be false. Either a philosophical counselor will have training in psychotherapy or she won't. Will never be false. If that's the case, why on earth would anyone bother to say that thing? Here's why. It's going to be used in a dilemma. I would be willing to bet a reasonably large amount of money that if you ever encounter a sentence like this, and you probably will, in an argument, it's going to be part of the dilemma. It almost certainly will be. So if you hear someone saying, well, it's either raining or it's not, or either she'll get the job offer or she won't, or either he wants to go on a picnic or he doesn't. Hunt for a dilemma. You're probably going to find one. Okay, on to number 12. See you then.